All right, want to welcome everybody to tonight's webinar. You are very fortunate that you have a guest speaker that's volunteered to share all of his secrets. And again, we're very thankful. I just want to give a little background on Matt. Matt has cleared hundreds of thousands of dollars by doing just this, putting bandit signs up. That's, for the most part, has been his only mode of marketing, as far as I know. I'm sure he's got others, but this has been the main thing that I've seen him do over the years. And his signs are so well known that when I talk to other investors, you know, they know the last four digits of his phone number. And I spoke to a gentleman the other day, and he called off one of our bandit signs that was learn to flip houses. And you know, I was talking about who's involved in our group, and I said, you know, we have some out there that have 3999 and 1220, and he goes, well, I know the 1220 for sure, Mr. Matt Pelanne. So he's made a name for himself, and because he's disciplined first and foremost, he does it every single week without fail, and he's got more signs out there than his competition, and it's paid off quite a bit. And what I'd like you to do tonight is share how much you think you've spent to date in man hours and in money, and what that's turned into as far as profitability. So I'm going to get off the line, and we're going to go ahead and let Mr. Matt Pelanne, our Bandit Sign Master, Bandit Sign King, I call him, start his presentation on marketing with Bandit Signs. Matt, you're up.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me and allowing me to introduce a topic that I'm very passionate about. Bandit Signs have been a blessing to me. It's not necessarily the best, definitely not the only form of marketing that you're going to want to incorporate in your business, but it's been my favorite. And that started out in the very beginning when I was a student under a mentor based out in Alabama, a guy named Tyrone Taylor. I'll get into that a little bit later, but I learned very early on that bandit signs were the fastest way for me to generate inbound calls. It was easy. It was kind of fun. You know, I can multitask while I'm hanging sides. I can still take phone calls, and I learned a lot about the LA landscape, driving around and you know, learning the common intersections and landmarks. So when you're talking to homeowners, you can say, oh yeah, I know that area very well, and so forth. As far as the investment side, I think Sam asked me, how much have I put in total to investing in these bandit signs? I would say I've probably spent, maybe 10 grand total my lifetime. And I started doing this in 2013. So it's been 5 years. And I'd say on average you spend about 2 grand, maybe more. You know, because in the beginning I was taking these blank signs and I would cut them in half. And so that would double your exposure. As you can see, the sign above is pre-printed, and I stick with those primarily now. So out of $10,000, let's say somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 just in material costs. I have, like Sam said, I did one deal that was $216,000. That was a wholesale deal. I've done several deals that were tens of thousands of dollars, others that are 5, 3, everything in between. So we're going to talk about a little bit today the benefits of starting out your real estate career using bandit signs relative to other forms of marketing. So here we go. What is a bandit sign? I think we pretty much all know that as we were looking at that introductory slide. You see them on telephone poles throughout LA. They're a nuisance to some people, but obviously a blessing to us investors for generating income and phone calls, inbound phone calls primarily. It's an 18 by 24 inch plastic corrugated poster. Generally, you can also get the sort of the flimsier paper material. I know Sal Williams uses those quite a bit. I nail them to telephone poles. Other people stake them into the ground. They zip tie them to fences. It just sort of depends on what you're most comfortable with. One thing I learned very early on, when you are nailing these signs to a post, you want to make sure that the flutes are going horizontally so they don't fold in. Oftentimes you'll be driving around and there's a flapping bandit sign just flapping in the wind. You can't read it because the flutes were vertical and the wind has caused it to fold in. Use those when you're use the vertical flutes rather when you're staking the sign into the ground, because otherwise you're not going to be able to fit the metal prongs through the sign. So why bandit signs? It's relatively low cost. If you're thinking about direct marketing, to start out, you're going to need to do 50 to 100 letters. It takes you about 5 months of attempts before you start really generating consistent phone calls. And so that's a large upfront investment. If you're talking about $1.25 per letter, you're hundreds of dollars into your marketing campaign before you start generating any real traction. So I say effective, albeit primitive, because in a day or in an age where we have social media marketing, we have online marketing, we've got cold calling campaigns. Just sticking a plastic sign on a telephone pole is kind of caveman-like, but everybody has a cell phone, and when these signs are prominent and they're salient, people will call you just at the drop of a hat whenever it feels they feel the impulse to inquire. So it's a form of guerrilla marketing, and to those of you that don't know what guerrilla marketing is, it's a basic, I would actually even consider multi-level marketing in a way to be guerrilla marketing. You're going word of mouth. You're not spending these huge budgets on marketing, email, drip, direct mail, phone, television campaigns. You're using resources that are free generally. And so with that, there's a little bit of controversy. Is this illegal? I'm littering up a neighborhood by sticking signs on telephone poles or where have you. But it's really effective in terms of creating brand exposure and awareness. So, you'll see in telephone booths, people slap stickers of their brand. Fortune Weavers wants to create pens. So we're going to have a ton of pens circulating out in the open, and that's just another form of guerrilla marketing. Flyers, business cards. I think you can equate all of those methods to one form or another of guerrilla marketing. Brings me to my next point. Is it illegal? In Southern California, by the letter of the law, it is. I don't think you can call a city council member in any of our major municipalities and ask, hey, can I hang signs up on your telephone poles all throughout, this zip code or what have you? Nobody's going to really say, yeah, sure, that's great. But, under the spirit of the law, you can hang signs and pretty much get away with it. I've never been fined. Actually, I've received phone calls from public works officials, police officers. It's particularly here in these smaller municipalities like Norwalk and Bellflower. But the city of LA seems to be a lot more lenient when it comes to bandit signs. One tried and true method is, hey, if you're only starting out and you don't want to just throw your signs away because they're going to get ripped down, stick them on a pole that already has signs. It's just a simple way to determine if their sign's staying up, mine should stay up as well. When you're in an area that has no signs, test it out little by little, see what the response is. If you get a negative one, just be polite. Say you'll, find out the intersection where the sign is and remove it. Another way to just start dabbling with bandit signs in the beginning is to put them up on a Friday evening or a Friday afternoon. And if you're only doing 10 or 20 on a weekend, take them back down on a Sunday. You'll never get in trouble for doing something like that. And I think that's probably the most conservative way to really get started. And that's kind of ties into something that I'm going to talk about later, which is targeting your market. This is my personal experience is that if you get a complaint, they're usually talking about one sign that bothers them. If it's the same intersection, they'll mention all 2 or 3 that you've hung up in that intersection. You don't want to say, oh, you mean all of Garden Grove is full of bandit signs. You just ask them specifically what intersection the city official is complaining about, or police officer. And you say, sir, I'll be taking that down within 48 hours. But if you know there's others up there, why take them down until they're complaining about them? All it takes is one sign to create a difference in, a life-changing deal. Hey, happy Thursday, Fortune Weavers family. You guys see me in my dorky hat, just out here hanging bandit signs. I wanted to post this video because you can see behind me here, there's actually a police officer who was standing right underneath the telephone pole the entire time I hung the bandit sign. So sometimes we just walk up with confidence. A lot of times LA City Police don't care what you're doing. Just mind your business and be polite. If they say something, just take it down. Say it's super easy to take them down. Hope this is helpful for you guys. There's no reason to be scared. This car behind me just got pulled over for having her telephone out while she was driving. So don't do that. But do be confident when you're hanging bandit signs that most of the time, police don't even care. This is Matt Pelanne, over and out. So there you go, guys. That's just tying into, should I really be worried about putting signs up in a neighborhood? Right after I took this video, I stuck another sign up, and there was a police vehicle that drove right by me. And obviously the officer saw me. He didn't say anything. They've got bigger fish to fry. At the end of the day, you can even advocate for this by saying, we're gentrifying neighborhoods. We're raising property values. And, there's a lot of worse things that are happening in the city for you to focus your time on me at this moment. Obviously, you're not going to say that last part, but the idea is we're doing more good than bad. So here's a little, I had to laugh when I saw this one. Your different methods to hang bandit signs. Obviously, you can hang them up like the guy in the bottom right corner on a telephone pole. Guerrilla marketing is the mini billboard, right? It's an interesting dichotomy because the big corporate companies, they're spending thousands of dollars to place ads on billboards, when arguably we're getting as much exposure, and depending on how long you've been doing it, maybe more exposure than somebody that pays for a billboard. I just like putting them high on a telephone pole because they stay up longer, and they're more visible than something that's lower to the ground or on a chain link fence. Start out, you got to figure out your budget. As in any business, you got to realize how much money can I safely invest without hurting myself. I think the smart number would be $100, 100 signs in the beginning. So if you're using the pre-printed signs, they cost you an average of $1.65. I think we get a little bit of a discount when you go to dirtcheapsigns.com and you mention Fortune Weavers. But that's kind of a ballpark number. That's also, Sam has a connection where you can buy 100 signs and you can get them within the same week. My resource takes 3 weeks for them to ship. They come out of Fort Lago, Texas, I believe. So, but the more you order, the better, the lower the price is. So I like working with them. The blank signs that you saw in the in the initial slide, those are less expensive because, well, clearly there's no print. You're going to have to draw on them with a paint marker. The benefit of those is you can cut them in half, and you buy 100 signs, you can create 200 for yourself. And yeah, they're smaller, but you're still doing your job of creating brand awareness. These are the paint markers. I would write down that brand, Zig Poster Boy, because they are very, very permanent paint markers. They don't fade very easily. They're easy to work with, and they're pretty affordable given what they do. The plastic cap roofing nails that I use to stick the signs up, I buy them at Home Depot for $30 for a bucket. I think there's like a 3,000 maybe in there. So that's very reasonable. A quality sign hammer. I bought one through a company called Bandit Sign Solutions. I don't recommend them. I know Sam has bought one through them. The owner is MIA half the time. My order took almost 2 months to get here. And as a result of the need to have a reliable sign hammer company, Sam has partnered up with an inventor and actually improved the product that Bandit Sign Solutions was doing. So talk to Sam. You can get a really good quality sign hammer, which is a 4-foot neck as opposed to a 3-foot neck, a clicker handle, and it does the job very easily. So bottom line, if you're just getting started, how much is it going to cost if you're taking the pre-printed signs? With the hammer, the nails, the signs, for 100 of them, you're looking at $355. If you're doing the blank signs, they're slightly less expensive. With shipping, you're probably going to end up paying about the same amount, but you can cut them in half. And I don't do this anymore. It's a very time consuming, but I definitely created a lot of brand awareness and was able to just create my initial contact base of realtors, buyers, and eventually sellers by using the blank signs. So here you go. The photo on the bottom right is what I started out doing. And there's the paint markers on this this canvas pouch I use. You'll see like a server at a restaurant using that pouch to hold a receipt book. I just fill them up with plastic cap roofing nails, and it's easy to get nails out, get in and out of your car. You don't have to scoop a bunch of nails from your trunk. The top photo obviously is what I use today, the pre-printed signs. They're a little bit easier to read from distance, but as you can see side by side, both are very legible. And the key here in terms of color is primary colors, yellow, red, and blue. Those catch the eye the easiest. Some people use greens and oranges and violets, and they make them complicated. It's got to be really simple, guys. It's just, one sentence, two, 3 lines at the most, not including your phone number, in bold print. And simple wins it for you. So the right tools, here you go. Here, these are Sam's new and improved sign hammers. The one if you look at the screen on the top right, the sort of lighter colored neck, that's the old school one. Oh, excuse me, the one on the right hand side, top right hand side is the old school one. Sam's is a little bit lighter. The hammerhead's a little bit narrower, but easier to use. I'm also showing a photo of metal cap roofing nails. If you're really getting serious about this, your sign's going to stick into a telephone pole a lot longer with those metal cap roofing nails. They are quite a bit more expensive. I would say at least double in cost to the plastic cap roofing nails. So after you've created your budget and you know how much you can spend or comfortable spending, it's about creating your plan, your action plan. What I started doing was I created a farm. I didn't know really what a farm was back in 2013, but I just knew, I read some articles online. I was doing just research, word of mouth, and I thought that sort of the Figueroa corridor in South LA, and again, this is like 2012, 2013, there was a lot of investment going on. I discovered that was low-hanging fruit. Basically, the south of the 10 freeway, west of Main Street, and the 110 freeway, east of the 405 and north of the 110. That little square was kind of my farm. It's a big area, but I made sure to know every street, every major artery, every relevant telephone pole that was salient and where I could easily stick signs to start generating phone calls. So I actually do recommend you guys starting out to build a focused area real estate market. Stay within a tight confine, and that way you can track see if your signs are staying up. It's easier to manage your business as opposed to just taking, 100 signs and spreading them all over the map, just driving them using the shotgun approach, as I call it. I know David Cowan more or less takes the shotgun approach, and he's had a lot of success recently. I know Bill Jason has recently created a deal for himself, I think in Wilmington through Bandit Signs. So the results are real. I'm nothing special, guys. If I can do this, you guys can. As you really create a consistent approach to this, you'll want to start taking the shotgun approach because, again, it's all about gaining exposure and having people recognize that you're all over the place. There's an app that I use called En route to mark multiple locations on a map. The zigzag approach was what I used in the farm method, but En route allows me to drop like 12 different pins on a map, and it took me along the most efficient route between each pin, so I wasn't overlapping or driving back and forth on the same street when I was hanging signs. Again, you could take the shotgun approach. You can take a specific strategic approach. I recommend keeping a very close eye to your signs when you're starting out. You don't want to just throw money away. Understand that eventually these signs are going to come down, but as long as you're monitoring them, you're tracking, a day, a week, a month afterwards, where you hung signs the week prior, so forth, you should be good. Talked about the fonts. We've talked about colors. A little bit about where you want to hang your sign. It's hard to explain without a map, but if you're driving, on a 4-lane road, 2 lanes, one direction, 2 lanes, the opposite direction, and you stop at a traffic light, and on your immediate right-hand side at the corner of the intersection is a wooden telephone pole, that's a great place to put it. If it's an intersection where most people turn left, or if, a lot of people turn left, then you actually would want to hang your sign on the opposite side of the street so that when you're sitting at the front of the intersection, you look left, there's a, telephone pole, and you stick a sign parallel to the street as opposed to perpendicular in the first example. I don't know if that really makes sense to you guys, but the closer to the corner of the intersection that you can hang your signs, the better. That's kind of the rule of thumb. No greater than 3 lines of text, not including your phone number when creating your sign. Really just make it pop. That's what matters, guys. It's primary colors. It's big font. It's something funny, if possible. But being unique and obviously consistent in this business is what's going to really get you the most phone calls. What kind of phone number do you use? One thing's for sure, you definitely want the number to be easy to remember. And I thought long and hard when I used the Google Voice number about how many repetitive numbers I can create. So I have 626, 600, 1220. There's 2 6s or 3 6s in there. There's 3 zeros and 3 2s. Pretty easy to remember. Don't ever use your actual cell phone number. Easier for police, anybody, hostile neighbors to track you down, to look you up, skip trace you, find you in the white pages, what have you. I just do not recommend doing that. You want to kind of create a buffer between your company and your identity and your signs. That's kind of the premise behind guerrilla marketing, is you're doing something a little bit illegal, right? But the risks are, or I should rather say the rewards are far outweigh the risks in the long run. CallRail, Grasshopper, those are smart choices when you're really monitoring your leads and deciding, hey, what if you're using several phone numbers, different templates, different signs, different locations, you want to see what's working and what's not. that's where I think CallRail comes into play. You can have, I think, like a dozen phone numbers, whereas, you know, the Google Voice is only going to be one number per email account. CallRail and Grasshopper are not free. Google Voice is free. That's why I recommend using it to start out. So what are you going to say? You're going to put a bunch of signs out. You're going to start slowly getting phone calls. I learned from a sales coach when I was doing loan modifications that anytime you're talking to a new customer on a cold call, you want to kind of abide by this acronym, USC, unique, structured, and in control. What that means is you want to have a message that differs and makes you stand out, you know, something special. You're not just your everyday investor shark that just wants to lowball everybody. Fortunately for us as a company, we have the price lift as an option. We have reverse mortgages. We have, you know, 25 different options. And so it's really our job to listen and be unique, but also be very, very structured. And when you gain relevant information, to guide the conversation in a way to where you're able to book that appointment. Getting to know their needs. That's all that it really comes down to, guys. You know, the better we listen, the better off we'll be in the long run. So again, phone calls are great. Emails, all of this interaction is great, but until you're able to actually sit down in front of the homeowner, you're not going to be able to get them to sign anything. And, you know, that's just a fact. I should say though, as you're marketing and you're building, you know, a buyer's list and you're speaking to sellers, you are also interacting with industry professionals, agents, other wholesalers, investors. Sometimes will sell you a deal. They'll call you about buying something from you, but if you follow up with buyers, eventually they're going to have something that they don't have the funds to close on. So they're going to have to wholesale it to you. So, you know, it's important that you're organized in your approach. I just created a basic script when I'm talking to a homeowner. This is what I started out with very, very early on. And I guess I'll read it. Hey, this is Matt. Somebody says, hello, I saw your sign, so on and so forth. And you ask them if they're looking to sell a property. They say, yes. Great. I'd like to ask you some specific questions about the property and your situation to determine if I can help you. Is that okay? And, you know, they'll probably ask you a few questions somewhere in there, but you're just basically building rapport at that point. And then eventually guide them into, you know, the specific questions about the property. How many bedrooms and baths? What's the condition of the house? Do you have a mortgage? You know, what is the loan amount? You know, are you current? And you're just kind of, you don't want to sound like you're probing them. You just need to explain to them that you need to gain as much specific information to determine what the plan would be to help their need. You know, and so a very important question is obviously what's the condition on a scale from 0 to 10, 0 being the worst and 10 being the best. What's the overall condition of the house? If somebody says it needs work, then you're onto you're gaining leverage in this conversation. The last two questions are the most important if you realize that somebody is really motivated to sell and they may sound kind of like a tire kicker. So you ask, paying all cash and closing quickly, sir, what's the least amount you'll accept for the property? And often they'll give you a number, and the immediate follow-up, whatever answer they give you, even if it's a great number and you know that it's a deal right away, you still want to ask, is that the best that you can do? They may come down another 10, 20 grand. You know, you never know. But I don't recommend this script as a tried and true method. I just think it's an example that you want to work by. Obviously with Fortune Weavers, we have more options than offering a lowball offer, but this is an effective way of tying somebody down. And if they say a number that you can agree to, you want to make sure you're at that house yesterday to sign a contract. You don't want them calling other Bandit Signs, because if they called yours, guaranteed they're probably calling somebody else, or talking to realtors who are going to guarantee them 110% of the market value on a home that needs $70,000 of rehab. So you got to tie these people down quickly. And I've done it time and time again using this method. Tracking your phone calls. You're going to get busy. The more signs you do, you're going to start out with 100. Hopefully you get to a point where you're doing 100 signs a week. After that initial investment pays off. You got to use a CRM at some point. We use LionDesk. There are several others that are relevant, insightly, contactually. I started using Realty Juggler. It's, I think, only $99 a year. It's not as effective as LionDesk for a number of reasons. But at the end of the day, it's really not your software that's going to make or break you. It's your ability to be a good salesman and to follow up. And as Sal always harps, the fortune is in the follow-up in this business. In terms of how often you need to be contacting a seller, in general, I think 5 to 7 contacts or touches before you get them to sign a contract is the rule of thumb. This is the largest investment, usually, their property that they're ever going to own, they're ever going to buy. And you definitely need to build a lot of trust with somebody before they hand the keys over to you. Vary your approach on how you contact a homeowner. You'll call them. Obviously, they're going to call you first if you're using Bandit Signs. You'll want to send them a text here and there. Just, if the deal isn't struck right away, maybe 90% of your deals aren't going to happen immediately. They're going to want to think about it. They're going to want to check you out. They go out of town. Just check in on them with a simple text. Hi, I was thinking of you. Hope all is well. Keep it really simple. Email them. Send them some relevant information about the market, but be subtle in how you gear it towards your goal, which may, obviously is for them to sell their property. Send them some information about a looming market correction or the fact that interest rates are on the rise. So any relevant article that would incentivize somebody to sell or put a fire under their feet. Obviously, setting up that meeting. The more you sit down in front of them, the more comfortable they'll be in doing business with you. I probably have 200 buyers in my phone. Some of them I've only spoken to the very first time they called me on my Bandit Sign, but I always take their information down, try to save their email address. I was sort of disorganized when I started doing this in the beginning, but one thing I always did was record their information in my phone. Case in point, I got a call this past week from a guy named Joshua. And at the time, he was with a firm called Bay Properties. And he called me and I said, "Hi, Joshua, how have you been? Long time." And he didn't even know who I was. He'd seen my sign years ago, actually in 2016. We spoke. I exchanged contact information with him. He never saved my information. It impressed him. And I later learned that he is now a real estate agent that specializes in working with investors. So he double ends a lot of deals, gets a listing on the back end. He's coached actually by a gentleman named Tony Usher. I'm sure some of you have heard of him. And I met with this guy this morning. I had coffee with Joshua this morning and explained about what we do, and hopefully he'll come out to the overview this upcoming Tuesday. But as far as building your buyers list goes, guys, you're going to want to have 100 of them in your phone minimum as time goes on, but 5 that you're going to do business with regularly. And the more you do deals with the same buyers, the more reliable they will be when you send them a deal, and they'll text you right back. They'll trust your input. They're going to trust that your rehab budget is correct, your ARV is correct. And, if you need them to close in less than 10 days, sometimes you'll have that rapport built up with them. Respect your local investors. I can't stress this anymore. I've come into a couple of issues in very recently, actually, where my signs were getting taken down, and in turn, I would go back and I would take somebody else's sign down that ripped my sign or covered my sign. And I called him many times and I said, "This is just, don't do this. It's not cool." And it eventually turned into a little bit of a war. It's no fun. It's no way to spend your time going out when you should be hanging your own signs and improving your business, to have to be looking for somebody else's sign and hoping, that it's not covering yours. Don't be that guy. Just don't start out that way from the beginning. Again, you're going to be creating that reputation. People are going to see the 626, 600, and they're not going to say, "Oh, that's the 600, 1220 sign." They're eventually going to say, "Hey, that's Matt. I talked to him many times. His signs are everywhere. There's another one of Matt's signs." So people are going to want to say that too, for Sam and for Cindy and for Jason or Bill and everybody in Fortune Weavers. You want to create a reputation by hanging signs and spreading your brand. This just goes back to the little war that I had. Worst case scenario, somebody really gets ticked off and they start, ratting you out to public works, city council, just issues you don't want to deal with. Here's a few photos of what I had to deal with in the recent past. Somebody got real creative. I call this cannibalism, actually. He took my sign, literally cut it in half, stuck a cheap piece of paper, stapled it to the top of my sign, and then hung it up. So here it was when it was still on the telephone pole. I ripped the paper off and I realized, what the heck is my sign doing cut in half, serving as somebody else's sign? So, he also had these cardboard signs, and I took a photo of it and I said, I'm going to rip your number off your sign if you keep doing what you're doing. Don't start a war with me. I have more soldiers. It sucks, but sometimes you just have to put your foot down. And most people are reasonable once you catch them in the act. This one gentleman, it's actually another 626 number in LA, that eventually stopped. But that was a really quite a battle. A business without a sign is a sign of no business, guys. I don't know where I heard that. I think it was on the radio, but I love the slogan. It's catchy, and in one form or another, guys, you need to create brand exposure, and you need to create, your sphere of influence. One thing that I feel that I've done well through hanging bandit signs is to create people of value in all different categories of this business. I've met contractors. I've learned from a lot of trustworthy buyers. I've learned from developers. I've met agents. I've learned from wholesalers who are better than me. I eventually was able to have Sam call me. Everybody basically that I've done business with in some shape or form called me on a sign. And fostering those contacts, fostering the people that are going to send you leads is so important. Maybe more important than just getting that cold lead, that random person who calls you, because you just never know if they're going to refer you more business. Real estate's so transactional, and when we're able to create relationships with others, with people that we trust, we know that you're going to have a steady stream of business coming your way. And so I'm going to show you guys a quick video of how easy it is to hang bandit signs. This was Sam recording me back in October. And I think I was able to hang a sign
here we go.
35
Reset.
seconds.
Go. Let's go.
Never knew sign hanging could be so fun. The black of the night, traffic is dim, lights are low. We come in and steal the show.
Just like that.
That's it.
Not bad.
So that wraps it up, guys. Sam, I don't know if you can chime in. I know it was a little bit short relative to some of the other presentations that we've.
No, I thought it was great, and I love that video because you could see you literally hit that nail once. And I know when I hang signs, it takes me 3 or 4 still, because I for whatever reason you have muscle memory that allows you to do it so quickly. And I still have that guilt factor that I need to get over because I keep thinking, man, someone's going to bust me or something. But you're right. I think I see where your signs are or somebody else's. And, that, I know you and David Cowan you hang on some of the same poles. The key thing is you just don't want to cover somebody else's sign. These homeowners are always going to call more than one sign usually. But one thing I know about you is you have so many that you've gotten homeowners that go, hey, I'm calling you because you're the king of this stuff. You have so many. I saw it everywhere. You must be the man, so that's why I'm calling you.
That's the music to my ears, right? Not when somebody says, hey, I saw your sign. I like it when people say, I see your signs everywhere. And I always take care to ask people, what intersection was my sign in? I like to know how long they've been up because I keep track of when I was in that area. And, I think it builds credibility with somebody. They see you're systematic. But it's really interesting to always know where they're calling from. And that kind of ties in, guys, to your farm method. You never know where the deal is going to end up. You could my deal in Duarte, homeowner call from downtown LA. And our deal ended up being 30 miles northeast of where they had called from. So be consistent. Hang a bunch of signs, guys, and eventually I would recommend taking more of the shotgun approach. Hang a sign when you're on your way to the grocery store, when you're coming back home from a homeowner appointment, when you're going door knocking. Take a minute, just stop for 2 minutes, or eventually 39 seconds if you can beat that record. Stick a sign up. It's going to pay dividends, I promise.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is, I like to always keep signs in my car and, wherever I'm at, I'm constant. What's funny is after, watching you, it's almost like, just like fishing for houses, you're fishing for good wood phone poles or electrical poles, right? Exactly. You're like, oh man, there's a good one. I got to stop.
Yep.
You're pretty crazy though. When I went with Matt, I mean, he leaves his car running. The back is wide open. He just goes and hangs, he's back in. I'm terrified someone's going to jump in my car and run away. So, I still got to get over that. But
that's why I drive a Subaru and not a Mercedes.
Yeah. I know. I got to think about that. I love the Prius. Maybe I should have kept that thing. It would have been perfect for this. No gas, hatchback, everything fits in there. Anyway, thank you, Matt. We're going to open this up for Q&A. And any questions you might have for Matt, go ahead and go to your Q&A deal on either your phone or your computer, and we'll go ahead and get those questions answered. Other than that, thank you for watching. We're going to go ahead and go to Q&A mode. You guys get ready to ask questions.